First of all, Ramona Diaz, congratulations on winning Gotham Awards, Best Documentary. Was that something that you expected?
No, I really wasn't expecting it. Because I've been making films a long time, and you know patterns, you know when to expect and when you know not to expect. And I always say, if I don't expect, then I'll be surprised. But you can't really talk yourself into not expecting. But this time, I really didn't expect. And it was virtual, and there were some technical problems, like I couldn't actually hear what was going on or see what was going on because I didn't have it on my computer. My YouTube link wasn't working. So I said, whatever, I'm just gonna sit here because that's what you're supposed to do. And then I saw the other nominees applauding and I was like, oh, yay, someone has been named. I really thought, that Garrett would win because God, Time is such a lovely film. And then someone whispered in my ear, right? Because he goes, okay, Ramona, speak. I'm like, I said, what happened? I said, did we win? And no one would confirm it. And I just didn't want to start into my thanking people when we hadn't won. I wanted someone in my ear to confirm, yeah, you won, you can accept it. But no one did. So, but they put me up on the screen live and I'm like, wait, did I win? I wasn't sure, but then I said, okay, no one's responding. I'm just gonna go, and I hope we won something. So, but of course I was flustered. It was like I was in a dark room and I was so I went through the usual, the thanks and stuff, not knowing what was happening. And I had no idea that we tied.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, and then Garrett came up and like, oh my God, I should have acknowledged the tie, right? I mean, that's what, but I had, it was like, it was kind of a mess for me. It was like, oh my God, what did I do?
I'm sure it was still great, just the win itself. And speaking of patterns, they're saying that this year's Gotham Awards could be a preview to this year's Oscar Awards. Your thoughts on that?
It's nice to go there, but you don't really want to go there because so many things can happen. It's still early days. It's the awards season has just begun, right? And they pushed back the Academy Awards to April. We still have all the guilds, and then the spirits have not been announced, and so there's so much more to go. But it's nice to be spoken of in that manner. I mean, it's an honor to be part of, to be a contender and to be spoken of as a contender. So I appreciate it, and it really is an honor.
But Ramona, I know you, and I know that you do these films not for these accolades. It's not your motivation to do films like this. You're known for your compelling, driven documentaries. So what are your motivations in delving into these kinds of stories?
Jannelle, I think very few filmmakers really make films to win awards, right? I think it's a very impoverished way to work. Actually, you work because you're drawn to the story. So it's making films is a marathon. So you really have to love it. You really have to have a burning desire to say something about the moment. And that's what drives me to tell all these stories. There's something about it. And I love characters. I love filming behavior. And that's what I do, like with 1,000 Cuts. Obviously, like Maria Ressa is the center of that story. And I just felt very compelled to tell her story because the way she told it, it was of the moment. It's both of the moment and yet timeless, right? Because you're speaking truth to power. It is a David and Goliath story, which is timeless, but very timely because she is talking about disinformation and
press freedom.
That. Yeah, and press freedom. Absolutely, such key issues of right now, especially this week. My gosh, yeah. So that's why I'm drawn to stories. I think there's always something that I want to say through the people I film.
The audiences are drawn to your films. In fact, your stories focus on Filipinos, Filipino-American experience, Filipino personalities, but you're able to transcend those films in order to give it a universal flavor that's being followed and appreciated by a non-Filipino audience.
There's always a universal element to every story because human behavior is human behavior. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm filming. basically, I go after behavior. I go after what happens to you when certain things go like right in your life. Or say Arnel Pineda, right? Being a lead singer in Journey, something went right in his life, but how does he handle that from moving forward? So it's not, I mean, it's great that it was Journey. It's great that it was a big, like, American iconic rock band. But really, my interest there was Arnel, right? And how do you step into that, the big shoes of Steve Perry? What do you do? And I think everyone can relate to that. I mean, of course, not everyone can relate to someone, a job like Arnel's, but stepping up, right? Do you deliver? Do you not deliver? What do you do if you're someone like Maria, right? When you're tested, when your values are tested, what do you do? Where do you stand? How do you hold the line?
Wow.
So I think it always circles back to how you would behave. And I remember my very first film, as you know, was about Imelda Marcos.
Yes.
Back in '04. We premiered that at Sundance. And right after the premiere at Sundance, this white Jewish woman came up to me and she said, you know, Imelda Marcos reminds me of my mother. And I said, exactly. So, you know what I'm saying? There's something about the people that you're watching or I'm filming that resonates personally, I think, with audiences, be it Imelda Marcos or teachers in Baltimore City or mothers in a very impoverished hospital, like as in Motherland, my film Motherland. There's something always universal going on, like motherhood, trials and tribulations.
Mr. President, is it important that people be afraid of you? Fear.
Yes.
And I think giving you the credit that you're due, you also have the skill of bringing it out of people. When I watched 1,000 Cuts, it was very interesting. Like, you really don't know. I know what's going to happen next because, you know, it's been in the news. But you really don't know how these people would react. And it's quite a testament to your skills as a filmmaker, because really, it was even more incredible that when you started this movie or documentary, you didn't know what was going to happen next. It was all like a surprise as things were unfolding right in front of the camera. What was the most shocking thing you think that you've seen through the filming of this documentary?
The shocking thing was the trolling.
I was getting an average of 90 hate messages per hour.
You know, it sounds very academic when you say it, but when you actually have to live it, like every day, wake up and see those messages. And even if, you know, Maria, you know, people have asked her, what, doesn't it affect you? And she said, well, I know it's manufactured. I know it's manufactured to make me feel a certain way, but yet you have to live it. You have to read it. And she does read it because she wants to understand it. Mm-hmm. That to me was shocking, and also the nature, I think, of the trolling. It was very personal and very sexualized and very gendered, and went after her like physicality. Mm-hmm. That was shocking, and of course the president himself, right? His language was shocking to me. I knew he spoke that way, but when you actually hear it, and Jannelle, you know, when I filmed those rallies for the president, and I had a foreign crew, I had a foreign cinematographer filming that, and we're on comms, right? We're on walkies and comms, and I have to translate sometimes what he's saying. Can you imagine me translating that into the ear of my cinematographers? They're like, "What did he say?" So, and then, you know, wow, yeah, this is really out of the norm. So that too was shocking.
Right. I was watching it with my non-Filipino husband, and even he was like, and that's the president of the Philippines? I go, yep, that's the president of the Philippines. And just a side story, I know I met you in Beverly Hills in 2019 when the HFPA, upon the invitation of Ruben and Janet Nepales of the HFPA, had an event on press freedom, and Maria Ressa was the speaker, and I know you were there. And just to add to that, I didn't really experience the trolling per se, but I know I posted a photo of myself with Maria, and the morning after I got some text messages It
Wow.
was so odd, right? It
Yeah.
was so odd, which brings me to my question to you. Have you experienced that? Have you experienced any trolling? Have you experienced any hate mail? And how have you dealt with it? How are you dealing with it?
So the film itself is being trolled. The film, not me.
Mhm,
And the film and Maria. Maria always gets the trolling.
mhm,
But as I read it, it's always the same. It's always the same language. It's always what the same thing they're saying. So you know it is manufactured.
mhm.
And I think they're not trolling me because all my social media assets are very locked down.
Right.
Unless it's about the film, then I reshare. I keep it public, so it's reshared. But everything else, I really treat social media as something that I use for work,
Mhm.
and something that I share things that I read, and I want to share it with people. But those are usually very private, only friends. So I'm very careful. Um, but it is. I thought I would be, and I'm glad I'm not. But the movie certainly is being trolled, and we were ready for that because Maria actually warned us. She goes, once this is out, it's going to be trolled. We're like, yeah, we're ready for it. And also, it's ironic, right? Because the more they troll it, the more they prove the film, right? That is the point of the film. So if you see the trolls, but what I'm also noticing is there's pushback.
Oh,
There are a lot more defenders of Maria
right.
who are commenting
Mhm.
than maybe even say a year ago.
Right.
So things are turning a corner, I think, because people are so tired of that kind of talk. It's exhausting, right? And I think the things hopefully will change.
What we're seeing is death by 1,000 cuts. Little cuts of Philippine democracy. We will not duck. We will not hide. We will hold the line.
You will be allowed to criticize us, but you go to jail for your crime.
In your movie, though, I like that you had access to Mocha and General Bato, right? Did you, and also in some ways to some of the footage with President Duterte, how were you able to convince them to give you this much access? And to the point where Mocha was actually sharing a very personal story about her father. And the second question is, have they seen it? And have you been in touch with them since?
So with General Dela Rosa, with Bato and Mocha, I believe in transparency. Like, they knew I was filming Maria, and Maria knew I was filming them as well.
Mhm.
But I think what I told them was, I want to tell you part of the story, because everyone has a story. No one is ever an anti-hero in their own story. They're always like the heroes, right? And we're all heroes. We're all heroes, and we all have a story to tell. And I wanted their story, and I knew that I really wanted to know why Mocha, with her considerable amount of followers in social media, decided to back President Duterte. What is the reason? And true enough, she had that reason. I wanted to get to that, and I think at that point she knew my work, that most definitely. She understood it, but Mocha's also, she knows the power of story,
Mhm.
right? She is a performer. She knows that I was gonna get to an audience beyond the Philippines. She understood that. She was also gonna run. She was about to run for Congress, and so was the general.
Yes.
He was about to run for Senate. So
Mhm.
I think both the general and Mocha really understand the power of the image of representation. And I told them, this is not about catching you behaving badly. I really want to go beyond that and try to understand you. But of course, as a filmmaker, it's always a balancing act, right? Between doing hagiography or being an apologist for someone.
Mhm.
I'm always balancing that,
Right.
because I know I can't go either extreme. Like, even with Maria, right? I needed her to be also human. I mean, very courageous, but also human and vulnerable.
Right. And so have they seen it, Mocha and General Bato? And have you guys spoken about it since the release?
Yeah, so I've heard, so not firsthand. I haven't spoken to them, but I've heard that they've seen it, and I've heard that Mocha is, said that yeah, that was a fair represent. That was what happened. Of course, she takes issue with the trolling and with the Queen of Fake News kind of moniker that people call her in the film. Of course, she would take issue with that, but all in all, from what I hear, of course, this is not firsthand. I didn't hear from them that they thought that it was, it's what they did. I mean, even the general, right? I did give him that scene where he questions his being very religious person and still advocating and implementing the drug war, because that seems to be a contradiction, and he was able to reply to that.
Right. And you're able to give them a chance to kind of, you're right, tell their story in their own words, try to redeem themselves in the way people perceive them. You were there, you're talking about personalities. This is about Maria Ressa and her courage alongside her vulnerability. But as a filmmaker, you got to sit on the front row. What was it, did you realize about Maria, for one, that you didn't know or you otherwise wouldn't have known had you not done this film?
People talk about her courage and her calm, right? She's very calm. Like, say at the last scene, like she was just convicted of cyber libel. She does a presser. She does a press conference. She's very clear in her press conference, which is, you're like, wait a minute. Weren't you just, so that kind of clarity. And I've always wondered, what is it about Maria that makes her tick? What happens? And I think it's her being a journalist. I think that's still her go-to. So she's able to step back, right, consider it, and sort of go back to her reporter roots. So she's reporting on herself. So it's almost like an outer body experience, if that makes sense. So she can be an observer in her own life. And I think that's where the calm is. I think that's what helps her. I mean, that's my interpretation of it. If you ask her, she said she's able to tamp down her emotions so she can think clearly. I think we're saying more or less the same thing, but I've seen it. I've seen her sort of switch back into reporter mode in order to be an observer. And being an observer gives you clarity.
Exactly. Yeah, being able to take yourself out of the situation and observe from a third person's perspective gives you calm. But I should have asked this earlier too, about Mocha. What was it about her that you realized after having filmed her that you otherwise wouldn't have known? And then after that, of course, Bato.
Yeah, I think with Mocha, it was the story of her father, the story of why she put her considerable influence behind Duterte. Because I think she really, truly believes in his rhetoric of law and order. She really sees him as, her father was assassinated. He was a judge. They never found the killer. And so I think that's her search. She's always been trying to look for the killer or someone who is going to avenge the killing of her father, right? And that's why she's interesting, I think. And that's what I got. And I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense in a way, and, to a point. And that's what I mean by being, I don't want to be an apologist for her either, because I want to also be very clear-eyed that she is part of the propaganda machine although she won't, of course, say it that way, but she is part of the trolling. So I don't want to apologize for her either. But she is, everyone has a story. Everyone has a reason. I don't think you go into it saying, I'm doing this because it's like the bad thing to do, right? You always have to have a cause in order for you to move, in order for you to actually do the things you do.
That's interesting. It's like the love for her father is what's driving her. And that's such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
What about Bato, General Bato?
The general is really interesting. I mean, I was interested in him because my very first interest was the drug war when President Duterte became rose to power in 2016, when he assumed the presidency in 2016, the drug war happened immediately. And I saw the same pictures you probably did, unlike my Facebook feed, right? Those really horrific pictures. And that's what led me back to the Philippines, the drug war. Mm-hmm. And General Dela Rosa, Bato, was the first implementer of the drug war. That's when the bodies really piled up. So I was interested in him to begin with because of my interest in the drug war. I didn't turn out that I didn't make it completely just about the drug war because things changed. But by then I had already spoken to him, and there was something about him that was very interesting to me. He's sort of this, he laughs, he sings, he does karaoke, but at the end of that, he can kill you, right? I mean,
he can fierce, and he's feared, right?
He's a jester. He's a menacing jester, right? Even in that scene with the police, with the prisoners.
Oh yeah,
in prison, like he's joking with them. Oh my God, your teeth. But at the end, he says, "You know, I can do stuff to you, right? You know, I can make you stop." So that sort of combination of joking, but I can kill you. You know, it's like, wow, that to me was interesting. And I knew he was a spiritual man. He went to church and all that. I know a lot of people in the Philippines do, and then they do something else different on Monday. But I wanted him to address that as well.
Right, which you did. So with all that being said, what is the takeaway that you want the audience to keep after watching this documentary?
You know, I'm not really I'm not prescriptive when it comes to messages. I don't think that's what film does the best. I think film gives you an experience that you would otherwise not have. I hope you have an experience of Maria, you have an experience of Mocha and Bato, and you take away what you want. I think takeaways are very personal based on your context. But I can only talk about what I discovered for myself making the film. And I think what I discovered was that systems and democratic institutions are very fragile. And you can't take your eyes off the ball. You constantly have to make sure and be vigilant that processes and the institutions remain strong by how you live. You know, you can't take your rights for granted because they go away so quickly. And that's why I wanted to end on that line that Maria ends on, like, if you don't use your rights, you will lose them. And it's true. If you don't keep your eye on the ball, things can go awry. And I think we all have to be vigilant citizens every day and not take our freedoms and our rights for granted.
Very timely discussion, especially with what's going on here in the States as well, which brings me, back to what I posted after that thing at the Capitol last week, where there's actually a sign there that talks about how our democracy has been won by blood. And the only way to keep it and protect it is to be constantly vigilant, because we can't relax, because it can go away in a snap, right? With that said, Ramona, the story is still developing, right? There's more that Maria faces and will probably still face as she continues to, valiantly and gallantly and valiantly wage this war for press freedom. Are you working on some kind of continuation or part two?
I was afraid you were going to ask that, Dela. Like, okay, so I only have one answer to that. Abangan.
Ang susunod na kabanata.
Yeah. So, I don't know yet. There are talks. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Also because, it's COVID. It's very tough to just plan. I mean, there's so many things. COVID really puts a pause on everything, right? You always have to think twice. But certainly there have been, very early days discussions. So ask me in 6 months.
Yes, I hope you keep us posted on that. And so what's next for you? What's on the horizon? If not,
I am trying. I'm trying. So there are projects, a lot of projects. I'm trying to do fiction. I'm actually writing a television series, which is like a historical biography. So that's being trying to work on that during the lockdown. I'm also maybe doing a sports documentary. I'm not sure yet. That's still being negotiated. So there are a lot of different things.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Ramona, for sitting down with us and talking to us. This has been a very interesting conversation, to say the least, and we are very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do.
So why should you care about what happens in the Philippines? They test the tactics of how to manipulate America in our country. If it works, they port it over to the rest of the world.